right. Welcome back to another episode of Crime and Unwind. I'm Aixa.
And I'm Denise. Today's episode is definitely one that will stick with you.
Yes.
We're diving into two haunting unsolved disappearances that have left behind more questions than answers.
Yeah.
The cases of Amy Lynn Bradley and Tara Calico.
That's right. Both women vanished under mysterious circumstances, leaving their families and entire communities desperate for the truth and justice.
Absolutely. And as always, not us without the wine. We're pairing today's deep dive with a little something to sip on. We've uncorked the silky Pinot Noir, rich, smooth, and just dramatic enough, I think, for to match the tone of today's episode.
Yes.
Oh my God, it looks delicious.
It smells amazing.
Cheers. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, that is smooth and silky. Yes.
Very, very, very good. I think I like this brand better than the one that we usually get because we get Barefoot, is it?
Yeah.
So definitely a better brand.
Nice. All right, so let's start with Amy Lynn Bradley.
Let's do it.
So this is a case that's fascinated true crime world and haunted her loved ones for over 2 decades.
Crazy. Amy Lynn Bradley. She was born on May 12th, 1974 in Petersburg, Virginia.
Okay.
She grew up in Chesterfield County, where she shined as a standout athlete. She earned a basketball scholarship to Longwood University and then would later graduate with a degree in physical education. So she was doing her thing.
She had a future ahead of her.
Absolutely.
After graduation, she was excited to begin a new job with a computer consulting firm. To celebrate, Amy joined her family on a vacation cruise aboard the Royal Caribbean's Rhapsody of the Seas. It's a big ship. Bound for Curacao.
Okay. Wow. So the cruise set sail on March 21st, 1998. It was Amy, her parents, her younger brother Brad, and they were all looking forward to a week of relaxation, sunshine, sea.
Yes.
I mean, who wouldn't be excited, right?
Right.
So on the night of March 23rd, after dancing the night away at the ship's Mardi Gras nightclub, Amy and
never sober. Flexing rainbows, stealing away by Minnesota. Avoiding off with camcorders and Chevy Novas. Stash in the building with this chick named Malone. From Daytona, when I was younger, month the boner. But now I only get chicks who win beauty pageants. Tricking and taking.
Amy and Brad headed back to their cabin.
Right. They've been enjoying drinks and music with the ship's band. That night had been filled with laughter, dancing, having fun, enjoying themselves. Brad fell asleep around 3:35 a.m. Amy stayed up a little bit longer.
Right.
The last confirmed sighting of Amy was on her balcony in her room.
So when her father, Ron, woke up around 6 a.m., noticed that she wasn't there, immediately alarm bells went off.
Yes.
The balcony door was closed and Amy was gone. Her shoes and cigarettes were also missing.
Right. That moment was absolutely chilling.
Oh, I can imagine.
So imagine waking up on what should be a peaceful vacation, right? Only to realize that your daughter is gone.
Exactly.
With no sign of where or how. It's a reminder that our sense of safety can shatter at any moment.
Seriously.
In seconds.
Absolutely. So Ron immediately alerted the ship's staff, but the response was annoyingly slow, okay? So an announcement to all the passengers wasn't even made right away, okay? So they literally sat on this, which is a delay that they faced serious criticism in the years since.
Right. So it's frustrating to think how much could have changed with a faster response.
Absolutely.
Every second matters in disappearances. Time is of the essence, especially in an isolated environment like a cruise ship.
Yep.
Now, I was watching a couple of the documentaries, and I remember the mom stating that they had just docked that morning in Curacao, and she was asking the captain, like, please don't let anybody off the ship. Please don't let anybody off the ship until we can start looking for her.
Absolutely.
And they were just, nope, they said procedure is everybody, and then the announcement came on that everybody can disembark or leave the ship, and, she was like...
It's weird.
Passengers are preparing to spend the day in Curacao. Ron and Iva Bradley beg the crew not to let down the gangplank.
My wife was pleading not to let anyone off the ship. Please muster everyone to account for everyone and look over the ship, search the rooms, please find her.
The captain agrees to launch a search for Amy, but refuses to make an announcement or seal off the ship. Minutes later, the cruise liner opens its doors to the streets of Curacao.
I don't know. It was horrible.
It was handled very weird.
Bad.
Yeah. So, the Dutch Caribbean Coast Guard launched a 4-day search with helicopters and boats. Unfortunately, Amy was nowhere to be found.
So at first, some speculated that she'd fallen overboard. But that theory couldn't hold with water.
Yeah.
Amy was a very strong swimmer. Excellent swimmer. And there was no physical evidence to support that theory.
I was thinking about that a little bit. Would there be physical evidence that someone went overboard?
That's
Especially in 1998.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Did the ships have as many cameras as they do now? Was there anybody out at that time?
That's what I'm saying. And then, okay, yeah, you're a strong swimmer, but do you know how big these damn ships are?
Yeah,
and the propellers and how strong those are?
They're moving. They're
absolutely
moving pretty quickly, and
right. What looks to us is like it's very slow. No, these things are
quick. Yeah, it's quick. So as far as physical evidence, I don't know what they expected to find. Let's say she did go overboard. I mean, if there was no one around or no one awake at that time,
there could be none then. Yeah, it's weird. So, over the years, disturbing reports of possible sightings did trickle in. One of the earliest came from a taxi driver in Curacao who claimed he saw a woman frantically searching for a phone shortly after Amy disappeared.
Right. And, they were skeptical about it at first, but the way that he described her green eyes, her mom was like, yeah, that's my daughter. Because they said she has some piercing green, very distinguished eyes. So in August 1998, 2 Canadian divers reported seeing a woman resembling Amy on a beach called Playa Porto Mori. One diver, David Carmichael, described her as being accompanied by 2 men, and the situation felt a little bit off.
And then even more haunting was a U.S. Navy officer's account. He said that he encountered a woman in Curacao, in a Curacao brothel at that, who identified herself as Amy Bradley and begged for help. But he didn't come forward until years later, which is absolutely...
Yeah. He had claimed that because he was in the Navy, him being in a brothel, he might have gotten in trouble, so he didn't say anything initially. But still, wait so long.
Yeah, still.
So See, that's the thing. That's the kind of detail that sticks with you.
Absolutely.
So the idea that someone may have had a chance to help her and didn't, it forces us to reflect.
Yep.
Like, how often do we ignore our instincts or dismiss something that feels off?
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep. And then just the possibility that Amy could have been trafficked is just unsettling.
Yeah. Yeah. And the tragedy did not stop there, though. So Amy's family was cruel. They were cruelly targeted by a scammer posing as a Navy SEAL, claiming that he could rescue her. For a price, obviously. So they ended up losing over $200,000 before realizing that this man was a con. And the only way that he went as far as like sending photos of this lady on a beach with a man with similar tattoos as Amy. Of course, that was all, set up. But he brought in a man as part of his team to look for Amy, who had the decency to be like, call her parents and let them know that this guy's a scam. Like he's full of shit. Hundreds of thousands of dollars they spent.
$200,000, and this just adds layers of trauma that almost no one can comprehend, or it's hard to comprehend. People being exploited, just off of the desperate hope of grieving families. You're targeting these people.
Absolutely.
It's just insane.
Absolutely. So Amy's story was actually featured on Dr. Phil's and America's Most Wanted. I looked for those and
I couldn't find those either.
They were also on other platforms. I was able to see other documentaries.
Yeah.
So they are trying to keep her name in the public eye. But in 2010, over a decade after she vanished, she was legally declared dead, unfortunately.
And then still the questions remain. Many suspect that someone on board that ship may have been involved, especially members of the crew or even members of the band.
Yeah.
I mean, there's plenty of inconsistencies, witnesses accounting of what they've seen or what they think, and it only just deepens this mystery.
Absolutely. And there was talk about, one of the band members that they were partying and dancing with having been obsessed with her, kind of like, looking for her, asking her family for her. And there was supposed footage of her dancing and carrying on with the band member, but he, of course, denies any involvement in her disappearance. So, I mean, we never know. The emotional toll on Amy's family, though, it's unimaginable. Yeah. So they've fought tirelessly for answers and keeping her story alive. And it's the least we can do. I mean, as much money as they've been caught out of, as much pain and suffering from the unknown.
To keep her story alive. That's why we do what we do.
Yeah. Oh, man. All right. So next we turn to the baffling disappearance of Tara Calico. So this is another case that left the community in shock and the nation with chills. So Tara was a vibrant 19-year-old college student who disappeared on September 20th, 1988. While out on her daily bike ride in Belen, New Mexico.
Yep. So she was an avid cyclist, and her mother, Patty Dole, expected her back by noon. When she didn't return, Patty drove along Tara's route, and what she found was extremely chilling. Her Walkman and cassette tape were scattered along the roadside, so obviously something bad had happened.
Absolutely. So that image, think about it, that image alone speaks volumes. So
absolutely.
So it's a symbol of interrupted life. So you can picture her listening to her music while she's riding her bike at one moment and then nothing.
Yep. And despite an immediate search effort, leads were very scarce and no witnesses ever came forward.
So as days turned into weeks, the investigation grew colder.
Yep.
Then on July 1989, almost a year later, a shocking twist. There was a Polaroid photo surfaced in the parking lot of Port St. Joe in Florida.
Yep. And the image showed a young woman who bore a striking resemblance to Tara.
Yeah.
Now, this is where it gets kind of dark. So she appeared bound and gagged, lying beside a young boy in similar distress as well. So this photo horrified everyone who saw it.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
So Patty believed without a doubt that the woman in the photo was her daughter.
Mm.
So especially because of a scar on her leg that matched Tara's. So the photo reignited hope, but frustratingly, the identities in the photo were never confirmed.
Mm.
So although she believed with all her heart that it was Tara, the scar match, they just could not confirm it.
That's insane. I mean, it's infuriating to think that such a powerful piece of potential evidence could be definitively connected, but the uncertainties leave everyone in limbo again.
But theories exploded. So, was she being held captive? Who took the photo? And why in Florida?
Exactly.
Why in Florida? That's
Exactly.
nearly 1,500
That's
miles
crazy.
away from New
That's
Mexico.
insane. That's insane. I mean, suspicions range from a random abduction to someone close to Tara who knew her routine.
Mhm.
There were even whispers of drug-related activity in that area, but no solid evidence ever surfaced. So that's
So, as
yeah.
late as 2017, Tara's former classmate, Melinda Escobar, she launched a podcast called Vanish, the Tara Calico investigation. It breathed new life into the case with interviews, fresh perspectives, and a renewed call for justice.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, that kind of public attention can be crucial.
Absolutely.
You know, cold cases sometimes only need one piece of information to crack wide open. And Tara's story, like Amy's, still hangs in painful limbo.
Yeah. So both stories do remind us how fragile life can be. So, and how quickly someone can disappear, leaving behind a wake of unanswered questions and a lifelong grief.
Yep. I mean, their family, they continue, to hope for closure. And that's why it's important that we continue to talk about these stories and keep these stories very much in the front
And
and,
forefront, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's so easy for stuff like this to be pushed to the back burner and not thought of. But there's still families out there that grieving, still need answers. That still don't know what's happening, especially with Tara Calico. I mean, there's literally no information, no suspects, no leads, no nothing. Like she was on her bike ride, and then poof, disappeared.
It's insane.
Disappeared.
That's insane. And then to have some sort of connection to Florida makes it even weirder. Like
Crazy. But this human trafficking is real and it's serious and it's scary and it's unfortunate that it can happen to anyone.
Absolutely.
Before we close out, let's talk about the deeper impact these cases have on the families and the communities left behind. So the emotional toll is hard to put into words, as I was just saying.
Yep. I mean, that constant hope paired with uncertainty can become very mentally and emotionally exhausting. Families become advocates for the missing.
They have to.
Yeah, transforming their grief into some kind of action.
They have to, because if they don't, no one will.
Exactly. And that's sad.
Yeah, but that's the kind of resilience that's both inspiring and heartbreaking.
Yeah.
These families never asked to become warriors, but they fight anyway.
Absolutely. The community support plays a huge role in it. In so many cases, locals are the first to search.
Yeah.
They're the first to raise funds. They're the first to keep stories circulating when the media attention fades.
Yeah. And with social media nowadays, these stories can reach global audiences now. So one share, one tip, one
That's all
voice.
it takes.
Yeah. That could be what finally leads to answers.
Absolutely. There's also the psychological trauma that these families endure. The guilt, anxiety, and devastating fear of the unknown.
Yes.
The unknown can just tear you into pieces.
Absolutely.
In so many levels. It affects relationships, your mental health, entire futures.
Absolutely. I mean, it's one thing to grieve, and it's always sad to lose a loved one, but to not know, you're in your head so much.
Absolutely.
You make up a million scenarios, and it really makes you think about how easy it is to overlook that side of the story.
Yeah.
So the long-term emotional wreckage, these aren't just cases, they're people's lives forever altered.
Yep. Yep. And then let's not forget the challenges within law enforcement. Sometimes cases are mishandled. We've had our share of cases that we've discussed that they have been completely mishandled or not even giving the urgency that they deserve, you know? So that's why it's important to continue ongoing training and collaborations. I mean, this kind of, progression is crucial.
Absolutely. Man, it's unfortunate that oftentimes it is the mishandling of these cases that causes them not to be solved in a timely manner or at all.
Yep. Yep.
But as we wrap today's episode, we want to remind you that if you have any information about the disappearances of Amy Lynn Bradley or Tara Calico, even something that seems small, please reach out to the authorities.
Absolutely. There's no detail too big, no detail too small.
Right.
Yep. Yep. And if you've been enjoying Crime and Unwind, be sure to subscribe and leave us a review. Your support helps us to keep these stories alive. So
Absolutely.
definitely, follow us and see we can get some answers for these grieving families.
Cheers to that. And of course, cheers to you, our listeners. Thank you. Just join us next time, Crime and Unwind, as we sip and delve into more stories that need to be told.
Absolutely.
Bye.